Hey everyone, welcome back to another Dragon Ball TCG deck profile. Fluff here. I've got Topo locked today. We're going to go over this. This is my favorite deck right now. I've had a lot of success with this at our locals. I've had a lot of success with it online, playing with friends. I wanted to go over this. I haven't seen it doing a lot in the online competitive scene, given the different. I think Core TCG did an event, PPG did an event, I think Limited Series is about to do an event, and I just haven't seen this deck doing much. I don't know if people are just not giving it the credit that it deserves, or if it's just good against kind of our particular meta here locally, but I did want to kind of go over this deck. I'm hoping that people will give it a shot as I play it. I do play it kind of weird. It's a lot like Trader Dende, where the more that you know a matchup, the better that it is going to do against that matchup. And of course, there are some things that it just really struggles. It's like an uphill battle with. But there are also things that if you know the matchup and you know what to save for when, it's just an easy kind of wait until the right opportunity to win. So going over the leader, on the front, when it attacks, you get one draw. It has two awaken conditions. So the first is if you reach 4 life. The other is if you have a unison with a specified cost of 2. So if you have the unison specified cost of 2, you get to choose 2 of your energy, take your life down to 6, and then awaken. But of course, you can also awaken if you have 4 or less life. On the backside, he still has the auto draw one when you attack. And then it also has a permanent. As long as you have a unison with a specified cost of 2 in play, as soon as you or your opponent play a battle card, they are no longer allowed to play battle cards for the rest of the turn. The big thing to remember about this is that if you have a unison in play, your opponent plays a battle card, then they destroy the unison, they can then also play battle cards for that turn. So this doesn't automatically set up for the rest of that turn. If you lose the unison, it kind of resets that effect. Kind of the condition. It has a condition. If that condition is no longer met, the effect no longer matters. So that's the leader, kind of linchpin. The second most important card, besides the leader, obviously, to the deck is the Vegito Unison of Fury. I think people are sleeping on how good this unison actually is. It's kind of cumbersome and kind of weird in a lot of ways, but in a lot of other ways, it's extremely controlling. So its top effect, which is an activate main once per turn, you can choose this card or a battle card that you control, switch it to rest mode, and add 1 marker to this card. So this is how we get to add markers to it. Its 2 unison effects. The first one is a -1 activate main. Your opponent cannot attack with battle cards with an energy greater than their current energy. So if they have 3 energy, they can't attack with battle cards of 4 or higher. If they have 3 energy and they have a battle card of 3, they can still attack with that. So it's not greater than or equal to, it's just greater than. His -3, which is probably the way that I still out 70% of games, is -3. You choose one of your opponent's energy, switch it to rest mode. Then this card gets 5,000 power, dual attack, double strike for the turn. So it becomes a 20,000 dual attack, double strike. We will use another card in here to make this higher, so it can be up to 50,000 for 2 swings. But we'll go over that when we get to it. Unison is really good, and I think people are sleeping on it, though it might just be really good in Topolog. I don't know that it fits in other places. The backup 2 costs, we've run 2 of the Super Saiyan Gogeta Dynamic Unison. Permanent, if all of your energy is in rest mode, your leader gains 5,000. It has an auto once per turn that if your opponent activates an extra card, you get to add a marker to it. So that's one way to add a marker. The other way to add a marker is its first unison effect, which you get to choose 2 yellow cards in your hand, discard them, draw 2 cards. Really good for cycling, finding things that you absolutely need. The -4 is during your opponent's next charge phase. They can only switch up to 2 of their energy to active mode. Now, that's not saying that they can only have 2 active energy. That's saying that if all of their energy is tapped, they may only restand 2. If they still have 2 and they have 2 energy in rest mode, they get to switch those 2 untapped energy back to active mode. So in certain situations, that's not always helpful. It's not always going to win you the game. It's not always going to seal the deal. It just is what it is. So keep that in mind. Your opponent can play around that effect. Otherwise, it's a fantastic unison for digging through your deck. And then last on the unison, we do play 1 Mechikabura Plotting Revival. We mainly use this for that -4 effect. The big reason that we don't Because he's a specified cost of 4, he does not satisfy our leader's condition for controlling and floodgating our opponent. But he is a blocker. Then if this were to lose a marker, we could use you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards, switch it to rest mode. Oh, sorry, it's not battle cards. It's any card. So energy, leader, unison, battle. Hits them all. +1, you get to draw 1 card, then you choose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, ignoring barrier. That card can't be switched back to active mode until the end of your opponent's next turn. That's an incredibly fair effect. It's good, though we're never going to resolve that. Usually if we play this, we're going to be playing it -4 to take a card that's going to help us win the game. So -4, activate main, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, gain control of it, switch it to active mode. So, for example, if your opponent plays a Xeno Cell, they swing with it, you're able to stop the 2 attacks and survive the turn. You can then play Mecha Kabora to have a free quad strike. So, this is the only reason that we really use this. We're not going to use this because we need a unison. We're going to use this to help seal the game in some way, shape, or form. Kind of moving on to our battle cards, I do play 2 of the Casserole/Striker. This is an auto. When you play this card, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You get to find 1 Universe 11 or 1 Unison with a specified cost of 2. Add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. I don't really like searchers in Dragon Ball. I want to play as few of them as possible. This is just backup in case I don't see a Vegeta or a Gogeta in turn 1, but I do happen to have this. He does have the added benefit, which is the reason that I agreed to run him. His auto, when he's switched to active mode, by one of your skills, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle cards and switch it to rest of energy cost 4 or less, and switch it to rest mode as well. So if your opponent, let's say you're playing Kid Ku, and turn 1 they play Kid Ku. Your turn 2 you play Unison. Casserole's on board because you used it to search. Unison's effect to tap the Casserole. You would then choose the 1-drop Kid Ku, switch it to rest mode. Then you can swing into it and slow them down from playing tempo. This is the real reason that we play this card, not so much for the draws or the search, but for that control-y tap effect. Next on the 1-drop fair, we've got 3 of the Basil Fatal Rampage. Good card is good. Auto, play this card, draw 1. You can only have 1 in your field at a time, but if your opponent has 5 or more cards in rest mode, you get to activate his activate main, which gives him 15,000 power and dual attack for the turn. This is really good for keeping unison markers down. It's really good for clearing battle cards. It's really good for adding pressure. 19,000 battle power is nothing to scoff at. I mean, your opponent has to discard, if your leader's on the front side, they have to discard 2. If they're on the back side, they're still having to combo 1 to get out of the attack. So it is really good. We run 3 of those because we can search these at will too. Moving on to the 2-drops. One of the most interesting cards in the deck, Chapel the Iron Drake. A lot of people refer to it as Chappelle, however you want to say it. Auto once per turn when your opponent declares an attack. Doesn't matter if it's with Unison, Leader, or Battle card. You choose one of their energies and switch it to rest mode. So if they still have active energy when they start to go into attack, I know a lot of times leaders will swing to get a search so they know what kind of play they're going to make that turn. But you get to tap one of their energy, which can really mess with their whole tempo. It can prevent them from being able to defend themselves the next turn. If they're a multicolor deck and they only have 1 multicolor card on the field, both are active, you'll tap the multicolor card and probably lock them out of some plays. I've seen people try to play around this card and just make silly plays because of it. People don't really know what to do about this. If they can't freely just pop it or get rid of it, they have to play oddly around this card. And if you have multiples on the field and they attack, all the autos activate and resolve independently, so you get to tap multiple energy. 2 or 3 of these on the field can mean big problems for your opponent and can provide quite the challenge for getting rid of them, especially if you never put them in rest mode. So 2 of those super combos, we play 4 of the Zamos Sacred Disbelief. Super combo, when you combo with it, as long as your leader is blue or yellow, you get to choose one of your opponent's battle or leader cards, switch that card to rest mode. So as much as this is good for going for game, it's also good for activating a couple of the other cards in our deck. And it's also good for controlling the field. If you know that your opponent's going to swing with a battle card and then swing with leader, you just combo with this, prevent yourself the life, tap the other. It's almost like having a free negate in your hand. So love these. You don't really need the draw so much because we draw enough anyway without those, without having a super combo that draws. One of the better cards in the deck as well, Vegito Prideful Transformation. This is one of my favorite cards that came out in set 10. So if you have a yellow unison with at least 2 markers on it, this becomes free during your opponent's turn. Counterplay, when you play this card, you can't activate counterplay for the rest of the turn, but you get to rest mode the card that's being played, and then you have a 14,000 blocker on the field. So this card is amazing. It makes your opponent think about what they're going to do, especially if you have unison on board. It will usually force them into making attacks. If you have Chappelle on the field first, you get where I'm going with this. If you have Chappelle's on the field plus a unison with this in hand, your opponent is going to sacrifice. They're either going to tap the energy, which activates the counterplay, or they're going to swing, which activates the Chappelle. So it just puts your opponent in a lot of darned if you do, darned if you don't scenarios where your opponent is going to get punished regardless of what they do. So we do run 4 of those because they are incredibly good. Next, we run 1 Swift Retaliation Cooler. This is just if I'm trying to go for game. Opponent tries to counter, activate this, get the play, get the draw if I haven't played a card that turn, and just win. So one of those, just in the case, it's 1 games before. We play 3 of the Grade 8 Bardock, Raider's Warcrime. I find this card being if you don't play it by turn 3, don't play it at all. It's an instant target for a counterplay. Your opponent is going to gun this card down and get rid of it, which is great for getting them to waste resources because this card's not particularly valuable once it's on the field. I find the best use is using this card to tap a card to make another card live or control the opponent plus getting the draw. The double strike, I mainly just use to get rid of unisons. I don't like giving my opponent two cards in hand if I don't have to. So use 3 of those. I think this card is getting slowly power crept out of the game. I do plan on doing a video kind of talking about my thoughts on this card. It is still good. I obviously found room for 3 of them in the deck, but I don't think it's as good as maybe it was 2 or 3 formats ago. Maybe with Ape support coming in Anniversary Box, that might change my opinion, but we'll see where it's going. Next, we won 3 of the Bergamo Ferocious Roars. This is just another control piece to the deck. So if you tap one of your opponent's cards using a skill, you get to pay 2, play this card, choose 2 of your opponent's energy, switch them to rest mode. It really just sets your opponent up for you to push in. Maybe you've got your unison that you're ready to swing on. Maybe you've got a big card on field, but they've got 2 open energy and you're able to kind of control the energy down. So if they want to negate, they've got to spark 1 from hand, something like that. So once it's on the field, it's kind of useless, but it's still 20,000, which can, put a lot of pressure on, or it's a target to switch with my unison to get a marker on it. It's just a really good card. I love this card. And I think in a different style type of deck, this might be a 3 of, or a 4 of, sorry, I do run it at a 3, but I think 3 is the right number for this. Because it's not always live, but it's not always dead. One of the finishers we have is Bergamo Lupine Predator. This card is absolutely insane. One of the most interesting cards to me out of Draft Box 2. It's just simply amazing. If your opponent's energy are all in rest mode, which can easily be accomplished with Bergamo on your opponent's turn, then his energy cost is decreased by 3, making him a 4-drop, 25,000 triple attack. But more than that, if he's played, he chooses all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and switches them to rest mode. Then their battle cards cannot be switched back to active mode during their next turn. So this is really strong against decks like Bulma, that relies a lot on having, 7 or 8 blockers on the field. It's really strong against cards that would set a blocker up or have battle cards ready to combo with. It's really strong just against a number of different decks, mainly decks that are going to utilize blockers the most. But it locks them down and then gives you 3 swings, which is a lot of pressure. So your opponent has to make kind of calculated plays against this card out of their hand, comboing up. I know Boo's one way to do it. They could after image on the first, after image on the second, but they're still losing life doing that if all their energy's in rest mode. So every time I've played this card, except for once, I've won the game that turn or the turn immediately following. So it's just always good to be able to resolve this card. Another game pusher that we've got, Scientist Fu. I think this card is still incredibly relevant. It's a pay 1, 25,000, overwhelm 7, draw 2 cards, double strike. Nothing about this card is bad. Nothing about this card is not as good as it were formats ago. If I'm sitting on 1 energy and I need to push for game and haven't played a battle card that turn, or I've lost my unison, I can easily play this, refill my hand a little bit, and just push in for game. I love this card. It puts in a ton of work. I play this as often as I can. It's squeezed in victories for me, if not just resource fill. 3 Flying Nimbus, kind of moving on to extra cards. Flying Nimbus, moving into set 10, was a 4 of. Then they banned the U3 components. I no longer feel that this is an automatic 4 of, just because it has a weird interaction versus unisons. If your opponent has a triple attack unison on board, Flying Nimbus does almost nothing to protect you that turn. So I may end up changing this, but it is good against certain decks. It is good to just have the negate. And oftentimes, I simply just need the 1 negate to survive the turn, even without being able to stop multiple attacks. So at a 3 of, a card that I'm finding more and more value in, and will probably go up in numbers, but Release from Evil. I just, this last weekend at our locals, realized how absolutely devastating this card is. So, counterattack. If your leader's mono yellow, choose the attacking card, ignoring barrier, negate its skills for the turn, and it can't switch to active mode until the start of your next turn. So, it turns off leaders, it turns off unisons, it turns off battle cards. If your opponent, for some reason, attacks with their unison before activating the effect, you release from evil, they no longer get to activate a unison effect. Permanent, if you have a yellow unison card in play, you can activate this counter skill without paying its energy cost. It's also really good if, it's a leader that has double strike and they're going in for game, or it's a unison that has double strike, or a battle card that's got triple strike. Release from evil, turn it off, you're taking 1 damage. I love this card. I'm actually considering going up to 3 or 4 on this because I think its applications are near endless. So going 2 for now, probably going up to 4. We'll test it. If it needs to drop down to a 3, it will. The next is a counterplay. We've got 2 Giant Ball. I choose these over Crusher Ball because I want them to be able to replace themselves after they're used. Crusher Ball is probably better, but Giant Ball replaces itself. And one of the big things with Topo Lock is drawing. One of the reasons that I really like this deck is because it draws a lot. It moves through its resources, and a lot of its resources tend to replace itself. So that's important to me, but this is a good turn 1 play for me a lot of the time. Next, we're running 3 Spirit Fist. This is part 2 of the Vegeta Unison win condition. So Spirit Fist has 2 effects. One of them, counterplay. When your opponent's playing a battle card, it's played in rest mode. But its activate battle is what we really want it for. So when you play this, you're going to choose... You can only play this with a Universal 11 leader, so it would be Topo or Jiren at this point. But you choose one of your leader cards or one of your unison cards. And they gain 10,000 power for the turn. But it has to be a unison specified cost of 2. So it won't work on the Mega Kibora, but it will work on the Vegeta or the Gogeta. Now, if you heard what I said, it gains 10,000 power for the turn. So on you -3 on Vegeta, he gains dual strike or dual attack, double strike. He's already at 20,000. Swing 1, play 3 of these. He's now 50,000. Before I even combo any additional cards, restand, he's still at 50,000. I have won the game with 2 Spirit Fists and Vegeta before. I've won with 3 Spirit Fists and Vegeta before. Your opponent just doesn't expect it. People are sleeping on how good this card is with your specified 2s. It would be even better if we had a triple attack unison that was yellow. I doubt we're going to get that just because of its interaction with this. But this wins more of my games than anything else. So just an amazing card. Kind of moving on, we've got Vegeta's Final Flash. U7 right now is the best deck in the format, in my opinion. If it's not the best, it's contentious at best. At worst, it's contentious. But this is how I beat U7. So they've got Vegeta on the field. I need to prevent them from being able to Royal Condemnation a big play, or I need to be able to play without having Emperor's Death Beam on me. So we'll use Vegeta's Final Flash to turn off the Invoker on the Vegeta with the swing. So if they don't negate on the leader swing, Vegeta's Final Flash, turn off Invoker. They no longer have Invoker for the turn, and I'm basically free to do whatever I need to do, unless they're still standing on 4 open energy. But if they want to pay 4 energy to Royal Condemnation me, I'm pretty much okay with that too. So 3 of those. It gives also leader or battle card plus 15,000 as long as they're yellow. So also really good. Last extra card is the Universe 9 symbol. So kind of going over this card, this is the reason that I think my Topo Lock plays a lot differently. So the optimal turn 2 play is to pay the 2 energy for your Unison, awaken, restand your 2, and then hopefully your opponent tapped out on turn 1 or they tapped out on turn 2. Pay 2 for Universe 9 symbol, draw 2 cards, and then we're probably going to be playing the Chappelle out of the deck. So every time your opponent is tapped out on your turn for energy, you're going to try to resolve a Universe 9. Now later in the game that becomes harder and harder to do because your opponent is going to leave energy open to defend themselves, or they know, or the jig's up because they know Universe 9 symbol is there. But we all obviously have ways to tap energy in this deck, but every time we can, we want to get a Chappelle the Iron Drake on the field. A few times that I won't choose to resolve this play effect is if I'm playing like the Boo leader or the Black Brawly leader, or a leader that can just pop a card on the field. Maybe it's a good idea to make them waste the energy to get rid of the Chappelle, but against the Boo, it really only feeds into their ability. They're going to be discarding cards to eat. It's under Boo's thing, so I won't resolve that part of the effect on Universe 9 symbol a lot of the time. Sometimes I will, but it's mainly 2 draw. I mean, people play Yellow Ape, which is draw 2, warp 1, or warp it, draw 2. This is essentially the same thing. We just don't have that combo power, which I'm okay with that trade-off because we get to play a battle card from the deck. But that's it. That is my Topo Lock profile. I want to get some play footage of this. I know there's a video coming where myself and Jake played at locals. It was one of the few situations. Well, you'll see. This deck is amazing. I pilot this deck particularly well. I know a lot of people at our locals have said that they've never seen a Topo Lock perform quite the way that this one does. It just has a lot of answers. It has a lot of weird pressure components that people aren't used to dealing with in this game. So if you'd like to see something specifically, or you can think of something that I need to add to Topo Lock, let me know in the comments below. I know I've got a few tech options that I'm kind of testing and playing with and using in other decks to see how I think they'll operate in Topo Lock. So this is my current set 10 iteration as I wanted it to be. I think it just gets better from here. But let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We're so close to that 1,000 mark. It's been my absolute pleasure. As always, read your cards, know your plays, Fluff out.